I was a complete pushover. I let myself get bullied by the school's queen bee and treated like a disposable toy by my trash ex. But then a freak car accident happened. I swapped bodies with Asher, the most dangerous, unstable psycho at school. Trapped in his fierce, ruggedly handsome body, I finally learned what it felt like to be a total badass. Meanwhile, he was in my body, living even more lawlessly and ruthlessly than he ever did in his own. When the school's queen bee cornered me in the pool locker room, trying to rip my swimsuit and film it for Snapchat, I didn't even have time to panic. Through the steam, I watched myself kick the heavy locker room door off its hinges. I grabbed the queen bee by her perfect blonde hair, slammed her face first into the deep end, and stared down at her with eyes like cold, poisoned daggers. Touch her again, and I'll make you drink this entire pool dry. The sharp smell of chlorine mixed with warm, heavy steam, filling the indoor pool area. Asher, who was currently occupying my body, was cornered against the edge of the pool by Chloe, the school's reigning queen bee. Chloe wore an expensive designer bikini that showed off her perfect curves. But in her hand, she was casually spinning a pair of sharp metal scissors. Her face, painted with flawless waterproof makeup, twisted into a cruel, smug sneer. "Oh Haley, a cheap, $20 swimsuit from Wish? You really think you belong in a place like this? You're literally polluting our pool." The group of minions surrounding her burst into high-pitched, mocking laughter. The sound echoed off the high-tiled ceilings, grating on my nerves. "Chloe is way too nice," one of them snickered. "She just wants to help you redesign it. A broke charity case like Haley probably doesn't even know how to swim. Let's help her cool off today. Maybe she'll finally learn her place." Standing in Asher's body just 15 feet away, I felt the blood rush to my head. My ears rang. I wanted to charge forward. I wanted to rip that fake, pretty smile right off Chloe's face. But this body belonged to Asher. I had no idea how to control this 6'1" frame of explosive, heavy muscle. My legs felt like lead. I could only watch. But then my own familiar, fragile, usually slouched body moved. Without warning, and without saying a single word, Asher took a sudden step forward. He was lightning fast. Before anyone could react, I grabbed Chloe by the wrist, the one holding the scissors. Snap! A sickening crack echoed through the air. Chloe's arrogant smile instantly shattered. Her face contorted in agony as she let out a blood-curdling shriek. My wrist. You crazy bitch Haley. Let go of me." I didn't answer. With a swift flick of the wrist, I snatched the scissors and tossed them into the deep end of the pool. Then in one fluid motion, I grabbed Chloe by her carefully styled blonde hair. Without a shred of mercy, I dragged her like a dead dog toward the 6-foot deep water. Chloe's scalp looked like it was about to rip off. Her screams pierced the entire facility. "Let me go. Haley, you psycho. I'm going to kill you. My dad will have you expelled." My actual arms were thin and pale, with blue veins clearly visible under the skin. But right now, they possessed a terrifying, absolute force. Splash. I didn't hesitate. I planted a foot firmly into Chloe's lower back and kicked her straight into the deep end. Water splashed everywhere, sending massive ripples across the pool. "Help, gulp he." Chloe thrashed wildly, her hands clawing uselessly at the water as she let out choked, desperate cries. She didn't know how to swim. The onlookers stood frozen. The air in the room turned to ice. That included my trash ex-boyfriend, Tyler, who had just walked out of the locker room in his swim trunks. Tyler froze for a second before rushing over like a madman. He grabbed my shoulder, his face red and veins bulging in his neck. "Haley, have you lost your mind? Do you have any idea what you're doing? Pull Chloe out right now." I slowly turned my head, using my own face, the one that had always looked timid, submissive, and eager to please. I looked at Tyler, but the eyes belonged entirely to Asher. It was the look of a predator staring at a corpse, filled with violence, contempt, disdain, and unmasked killer instinct. It was like an apex beast looking down at an insect. "Get lost." The voice was low, carrying Asher's signature gravelly, suffocating pressure. The temperature in the room felt like it dropped 20 degrees. Tyler actually flinched. A flash of pure terror crossed his eyes, and he instinctively let go of my shoulder, stumbling back 2 steps. I turned back to the pool, where Chloe was still flailing, her eyes rolling back after swallowing several mouthfuls of chlorinated water. I casually picked up a long-handled metal pool skimmer from the deck. With perfect precision, I hooked it under her bikini strap and yanked her upward just enough so her nose and mouth cleared the surface. Chloe gasped desperately for air, water streaming down her face. Her waterproof makeup was ruined, mascara running down her cheeks. Smudged, weeping, and shivering, she looked like a drowned rat. There was no trace of the proud queen bee left. The second she caught her breath, she opened her mouth to scream curses. But I flicked my wrist, pressing the metal pole down, shoving her head right back under the water. "Apologize." I didn't shout. The voice was calm, almost quiet, but it carried a chilling authority that cut through the silence of the room. "Gulp, bubble." Chloe's voice was muffled as a trail of desperate bubbles rose to the surface. I let go of the pole, watching her sink again, completely indifferent. Apologize. I slowly raised my hand, pointing directly at me, at the real Haley standing inside Asher's towering body. Every eye in the room instantly locked onto me. Their expressions were a mix of confusion, dread, and utter disbelief. Haley was forcing Chloe to apologize to Asher? What kind of twisted movie was this? Those two had never even spoken a word to each other before today. Tyler finally found his voice again, pointing a trembling finger at me, and screaming hysterically. Haley, are you mentally ill? You're doing this to Chloe over a piece of trash like Asher? Do you know who her dad is? He's on the school board. You're dead at this school. I ignored him completely, not even throwing a glance his way. I just kept staring at Chloe, who was on the verge of passing out in the water. I'm sorry, help. I'm sorry. Chloe finally broke. In the face of actual drowning, her pride crumbled into dust. She wept and begged, her voice barely a whisper. Only then did I use the skimmer to drag her to the edge, hoisting her onto the wet tiles like a sack of garbage. Chloe collapsed on the floor, shivering violently and coughing up water, shaking like a leaf in the wind. I grabbed a clean white towel from a nearby lounge chair. Slowly, methodically, I wiped my hands. I cleaned every single finger with extreme care, as if I had just touched something deeply contaminated. Wiping finished, I tossed the towel aside and walked straight over to Asher. Asher looked at me. I looked at myself. Our eyes met, carrying a heavy, silent understanding. I suddenly reached out and grabbed Asher's wrist. The grip was tight, almost rough, but there was a subtle, reassuring squeeze in the touch. Let's go. I pulled Asher along. Under the terrified, silent stares of everyone in the pool, we turned and walked out. Our silhouettes looked defiant and untouchable. We walked in silence across the noisy courtyard, avoiding the main paths until we reached the rooftop of the abandoned old science building. No one ever came up here. The wind was howling, making the weeds growing through the concrete rustle loudly. The air was chilly, but Asher's body felt like a furnace, blood pumping hot through my veins. Asher leaned against the rusty iron railing. Using my hands, he habitually patted his pockets. Realizing there were no cigarettes, he clicked his tongue in annoyance and violently kicked an old wooden desk nearby. It was surreal. My face, usually looking down, quiet, timid, and plain, was now painted with arrogance, rage, and impatience. The raw intensity in his eyes made my gentle features look strikingly fierce, almost beautiful in a dangerous way. Hey, he spoke. The voice was high and feminine, my voice, but the tone was incredibly sharp and dominant, like he owned the world. Are you always this much of a spineless coward? You just let people walk all over you. I looked down. Using his large, calloused hands, I unconsciously scratched at the peeling paint of the railing. I'm used to it. Used to it. He let out a harsh laugh, as if he'd just heard the funniest joke in the world. His eyes pierced through me. Is your spine made of jelly? Someone steps on you, and you ask them if their foot hurts? Are you a masochist? His blunt words stung. A wave of intense frustration and hurt washed over me. My eyes burned and my vision blurred. What else was I supposed to do? I snapped, my voice cracking as tears threatened to spill from his eyes. Chloe's dad is a major donor and sits on the school board. Tyler always protects her. I'm just a scholarship kid. I can't even afford a hospital bill if I get sick. How am I supposed to fight them? I just wanted to keep my head down, graduate, and get into college. The floodgates opened, and memories of every humiliation I had endured rushed back. It started shortly after Tyler and I began dating. That was the first time Chloe targeted me. She had cornered me in the girls' restroom stall and poured a bucket of ice-cold water over my head. Then she laughed as she threw my backpack and the study guides I had stayed up all night writing straight into the trash can. Haley, let me tell you a secret, she had said, looking down at my shivering, soaked self. Tyler told us that dating you is just a little charity project. A country bumpkin like you doesn't even deserve to wipe my shoes. You think he actually loves you? Keep dreaming. My face had flushed red back then. Shaking with anger, I had yelled, "You're lying. Tyler isn't like that. He loves me." Chloe's laughter had grown louder, sharp and mocking. Oh really? Hear it for yourself. She pulled out her phone and played an audio clip. It was Tyler's voice, surrounded by the loud music and chatter of a bar. His voice was incredibly clear. Tyler, are you really dating that Haley girl? She's so plain. She probably doesn't even know what Chanel is. Isn't it embarrassing to be seen with her? Come on guys, don't roast me too hard. Tyler's voice laughed. She's naive. Easy to play. Think of it as charity, giving her a taste of what it's like to be wanted. I'll dump her when I get bored. Besides, Chloe's been giving me attitude lately. I'm just using Haley to make her jealous. Those words had felt like a rusty blade, carving away my self-respect piece by piece, leaving me bleeding. Later, Tyler had found me. He held me close, his eyes dripping with sweet, fake tenderness. Haley, don't listen to Chloe. She's just jealous of us. I was just drunk and talking big in front of the guys. You know how guys are. We have egos. You're the only one I care about. Please believe me. And I had believed him. Like a pathetic, desperate fool. I had brainwashed myself over and over, choosing to trust him. Until today, when he pointed at my face and called me crazy. All to protect Chloe. Only then did I finally wake up. I was nothing but a toy to relieve his boredom. What are you thinking about? Who are you crying for? Asher's rough voice snapped me out of my memories. I looked up at him, tears finally spilling over Asher's sharp cheekbones. Asher, why did this happen to us? How did we even swap? He walked over to me. Using my short body, he had to look up to meet my gaze in his 6'1" frame. How the hell should I know? I crashed my bike into a guardrail last night. When I woke up, I was you. He ran a hand through my long hair in frustration. Halfway through, he paused, as if worried about pulling the roots, and gently patted it down instead with a clumsy tenderness. All right, suck those tears back in. I hate crying girls. He paused, looking at his own face on me with deep disgust. And even though you're wearing my face, seeing a guy cry is still repulsive. Silence fell over the rooftop. The distant hum of the city drifted up to us. After a long moment, he zipped open my worn-out canvas bag, pulled out a battered notebook and a pen, and slapped them against my broad chest. From now on, we write notes. Don't talk to yourself in public unless you want people to think we're schizophrenic and throw us in an asylum. He tore a page out, pressed it against the brick wall, and scribbled furiously. When he finished, he slapped the paper onto my chest. The handwriting was sharp and chaotic, radiating pure arrogance. Starting tomorrow, you do exactly as I say. 1. Do not speak a single word to that idiot Tyler. Even looking at him makes me sick. 2. If Chloe touches you again, beat her to a pulp. I'll take the fall. 3. Most importantly, don't embarrass my body. Stand up straight. Looking at the note, my heart swirled with fear, confusion, and a tiny, hidden spark of comfort. I took the pen, my hand trembling as I wrote underneath his words. I don't dare to. He took the paper, and his brows instantly knitted into a tight knot. Using my face, he made an incredibly fierce expression that looked like he wanted to bite someone. He snatched the pen back, crossing out my words so hard the paper almost tore, and shoved it back into my hands. You don't dare, but I do. My heart skipped a beat, my blood pumping a little faster. Apparently feeling that wasn't enough, he grabbed the paper again and aggressively added one more line. Starting tomorrow, I'm teaching you how to be a monster. The next morning, golden sunlight filtered through the trees, casting shadows along the pathway of Silverwood Academy. I walked side by side with Asher into the classroom, currently occupying his towering body. This was the honors class. The students here were either ultra-wealthy heirs or top-tier scholarship geniuses like I used to be. Asher was the only anomaly, a cancer, who got in solely because his family paid a massive donation fee, and who consistently occupied the very bottom of the grade. The moment we walked in, the noisy classroom fell dead silent. Every eye turned to us like searchlights. Whispers broke out immediately, like a swarm of buzzing flies. Holy shit, look! Asher and Haley walked in together. Did you hear about the pool yesterday? Haley looked possessed. She almost drowned Chloe. I heard Chloe had nightmares all night. Seriously? Pussy Haley dared to touch Chloe. Hasn't she been following Tyler around like a lost puppy? Did getting dumped finally break her brain? Who knows? But look at her eyes now. They're so cold. It's creepy. She's like a different person. I felt Asher shoot me a warning glare. I could only steel myself, pull my shoulders back, and walk over to his seat, the permanently empty desk in the back corner by the window. My original seat was just diagonal to his, which he now claimed. He propped his legs up on the desk, looking incredibly relaxed and arrogant. Soon the bell rang. In walked Mr. Vance, the most obnoxious teacher in the department. Mr. Vance had always hated me because despite how hard I studied, my physics grades were mediocre. Plus, I was quiet and easy to pick on, making me his favorite target whenever he wanted to make an example of someone. Today, he clearly wanted to reassert his authority in front of the class after the pool drama. He slammed his thermos onto the podium with a loud thud, his eyes locking onto me in the back row. Haley, stand up. Asher stood up slowly, keeping his hands casually shoved into his pockets. His face was blank, his posture relaxed and dripping with a bad boy attitude. Look at your posture. You got the lowest grade in the class on yesterday's physics quiz again. Stupid is one thing, but your attitude is unacceptable. Go to the board and solve this problem. Mr. Vance pointed to a highly complex electromagnetic field problem on the blackboard, a smug smirk playing on his lips. It was an advanced challenge question. Forget about me. Even the top student in AP Physics would need at least 15 minutes of scratch work to solve it. The class turned to look at me, many wearing eager grins, waiting for the train wreck. Chloe sat in the front row, wearing heavier makeup than usual to hide her pale face. She turned around, her eyes filled with spite and anticipation. My palms started sweating inside Asher's body. I sat on pins and needles, terrified he would lose his temper and smash the podium. But Asher just glanced at the board, a trace of pure disdain flashing in his eyes. Then, under everyone's gaze, he stepped out of the row and walked up to the board. His steps were steady, carrying an effortless, natural confidence. He picked up a piece of chalk. Without even reading the prompt twice, he began writing. No hesitation. No pausing to think. Lines of incredibly elegant, highly simplified formulas flowed onto the board. The clicking of the chalk against the slate sounded like a fast-paced battle march. He didn't even use the standard curriculum method. Instead, he utilized college-level calculus, introducing a gradient equation for the non-uniform distribution of the Lorentz force, completely breaking down the complex electromagnetic motion. In less than 2 minutes, he tossed the chalk aside and brushed the dust off his hands. Done. He spoke using my voice, usually quiet and soft, but now it rang out clear, carrying an undeniable, absolute authority. The entire classroom went so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Mr. Vance's smug grin froze, replaced by utter shock and disbelief. He pushed his glasses up his nose, staring at the steps on the board. His lips trembled, but no words came out. Mr. Vance, Asher said using my voice, his tone polite but dripping with subtle mockery. This problem was taken from the AP Physics C tournament 2 years ago. But you left out a crucial premise in your given conditions, the non-uniform distribution of the Lorentz force. If we went by your uniform magnetic field condition, the particles would escape in the third quadrant, making a closed loop impossible. I took the liberty of adding a gradient condition where the magnetic induction changes with the coordinates, solved it with a second-order ordinary differential equation, and found the terminal velocity. Also, your textbook formula stuffing method is incredibly clumsy. It's a waste of time and lacks any mathematical beauty. He finished speaking, and the entire room felt like it had entered a vacuum. Mr. Vance's face turned red, then white, like a watercolor palette. He sputtered for a few seconds, unable to find a single argument, because he knew Haley was absolutely right. In fact, his solution was far more elegant than the official answer key. Go back to your seat, he barked, trying to salvage the last shred of his dignity. Sure, Asher replied casually, putting one hand in his pocket as he strolled back. As he passed Chloe's desk, he paused for a fraction of a second, letting out a soft, mocking laugh. The students looked at me with completely different eyes now. The mockery was gone, replaced by awe. Tyler's expression was the most complex. His eyes scanned me up and down, as if seeing me for the very first time, a predatory spark of conquest lighting up his eyes. Sitting in the back, I looked at my own back from Asher's body. For the first time in my life, I realized that my own body could look so bright, so radiant, and so utterly untouchable. The bell for the end of the period hadn't even finished ringing before the classroom erupted into a flurry of frantic whispers. I stood up slowly, currently occupying Asher's massive 6'1" frame. Every muscle in my shoulders felt heavy, packed with a dense, coiled strength that made my old, slouched posture feel completely unnatural. I watched as myself, Asher in my fragile, pale body, casually gathered my books, slung my worn canvas backpack over one shoulder, and strode out of the classroom without looking back. I followed him out, my heavy combat boots thudding loudly on the polished linoleum. In the hallway, the crowd of students parted from me automatically, their eyes filled with a new quiet terror. But before I could reach the exit, a figure stepped out from the lockers, blocking the path. It was Tyler. His face was flushed, his leather varsity jacket unzipped, his chest puffed out. As he tried to look imposing, he ignored me completely, his eyes locked onto the small, delicate girl holding the books. Haley, Tyler called out, his voice carrying that same sweet, patronizing tone he had always used to keep me on his leash. We need to talk. What was that back there in physics? Are you seriously trying to show off in front of the guys? Asher stopped. He slowly turned my head, his eyes, usually so soft, timid and eager to please, now carrying a cold, dead vacancy that made the air in the corridor freeze instantly. I'm speaking to you, Haley, Tyler said, taking a step closer, his hand reaching out to grab my wrist. Don't play hard to get. I've been nice to you, but yesterday at the pool, and now today, you're making me look bad in front of my friends. Let go of her, I said. My voice came out deeper, a low, gravelly baritone that made the surrounding students gasp. Timothy's face went pale. He turned to look at me, a brief mocking grin touching his lips. Asher? What's your deal? Since when do you care about a charity case like her? Before I could answer, Asher acted. Using my small, fragile hand, he didn't try to pull away. Instead, he grabbed Tyler by the collar of his varsity jacket, his fingers twisting the thick leather. With a speed that was terrifyingly precise, I drove my weight forward, slamming Tyler's 6-foot frame hard against the metal lockers. Clang. The sound of the lockers denting under the impact echoed through the entire hallway. Tyler gasped, the wind knocked out of his lungs, his face turning a dark, sickly purple as he stared at the small, pale girl who had just pinned him to the wall. With one hand. "Listen to me, you cheap parasite," Asher whispered, her voice low, raspy and carrying a lethal stillness that made Tyler's eyes wide with a sudden, raw terror. "If you ever say my name again, or if you ever come within 500 feet of my sister, I will personally make sure your golden varsity career is buried in a ditch. Do you understand me? Let go." Tyler choked out, his hands clawing weakly at my wrists. I stood behind them, my arms crossed over my chest, watching my own face dominate the school's star athlete. It was a work of art. The wind on the roof of the abandoned old science building was cold, whistling through the rusted iron railings and the dead weeds growing through the concrete. "Stand up straight," Asher snapped, slapped my shoulder with a rolled-up notebook. I stood in his 6'1" body, my back slightly slouched out of old habit. I'm trying, Asher. It's just, this body is too heavy. I feel like I'm wearing a suit of iron." "That iron is 40 pounds of muscle, you idiot," Asher muttered, running his fingers through my long hair in frustration. He sat on an old wooden desk, his legs propped up, his face painted with a sharp, arrogant impatience. "When people look at you, they shouldn't see a victim. They should see a brick wall. Pull your shoulders back. Keep your chin up. When you walk, let your heels strike first. Like this." He stood up, walking across the roof. Even in my short, fragile body, his steps were steady, carrying an effortless, natural confidence that made my cheap sneakers look like luxury boots. "Now put your hands up," he ordered. I raised Asher's large, calloused hands, keeping them in a loose, defensive boxing stance. "No, tighter," Asher said, walking over and adjusting my elbows, his fingers lingering on my forearms. His touch was firm, but there was a subtle, reassuring warmth to it that made my chest tighten. "Keep your guard near your jaw. When a guy like Tyler lunges, he's always going to aim for the nose. He has no technique. He's just heavy. You slip left, transfer your weight to your back leg, and drive your fist straight up into his chin. Like this." He demonstrated the movement, his small body pivoting with a speed and leverage that was absolutely beautiful. "You really know how to fight, don't you?" I asked softly, looking down at him. "I've been fighting since I was 8, Haley," Asher said, his voice dropping into a quiet, serious tone I had never heard from him before. "My dad is a brute who thinks a son is only useful if he can take a beating. When I was 10, he locked me in the cellar for 2 days because I lost a middle school boxing match." My heart gave a sudden, painful lurch. I looked at his sharp, handsome face on my body, realizing the source of his dangerous, unstable psycho reputation. We were both survivors. I was a survivor of the quiet, insidious cruelty of the school's elite. He was a survivor of the loud, violent madness of his own family. "I'm sorry, Asher," I whispered. "Don't be sorry," he said, his eyes locking onto mine with a fierce, absolute intensity. "Just learn how to throw a punch. Because next week is the school board's annual charity gala. Chloe's father and my dad will both be there. And they're going to try to crush us." He tore a sheet of paper from his notebook, scribbling a single line before slapping it onto my chest. "Learn the stance, or I'll beat you myself." I took the pen, a tiny, warm spark of comfort filling my heart as I wrote back, "I'll learn." The grand ballroom of the Hilton was a tapestry of gold leaf, crystal chandeliers, and the loud, arrogant laughter of the city's elite. Tonight was the school board's annual charity gala, an event where the ultra-wealthy families of Silverwood Academy gathered to boast about their donations and secure their children's Ivy League admissions. I arrived with Asher. I was dressed in a tailored, dark 3-piece suit that fit Asher's towering frame perfectly, my hair styled in his signature, messy bad boy crop. Beside me, dressed in a simple, elegant dark green wool dress, was Asher in my body. His hair was swept up in a loose chignon, and his posture was so cold, so dominant, that he completely eclipsed every other girl in the room. "Look, it's him." The whispers began instantly. "Asher Vance. And that scholarship girl, Haley? How does she have the nerve to show her face here after the pool incident?" Chloe's father, Victor Howard, the school board trustee, stood near the VIP lounge, holding a glass of champagne. When he saw us enter, his face turned a dark, furious red. He strode forward, his chest puffed out with the authority of a man who owned half the city. "Asher," Victor said, his voice carrying a cold, patronizing weight as he looked at my 6'1" body. "I heard you had some trouble at the pool last week. My daughter Chloe was highly traumatized. I suggest you and your little friend leave this hall before I have the security escorts remove you." I felt a sudden, sharp prickle of alarm. My hands in my suit pockets began to sweat. But before I could speak, Asher stepped in front of me. Using my soft melodic voice, He let out a low, mocking laugh that made the surrounding board members freeze. Mr. Howard, Asher said, his voice smooth and projecting clearly through the quiet hall. I would be careful about who you call security on. My family's legal team just finalized our audit of the school's donation registry. The $10 million science center you supposedly donated last year was paid for using shell companies registered to your offshore tax havens. Victor's face went instantly pale, his hand shaking so violently his glass of champagne rattled. You're lying. This is slander. The files have already been sent to the State Revenue Bureau, Mr. Howard. Asher said, taking a step closer, his eyes locking onto his with a chilling, absolute certainty. If you try to remove us, those documents will be on the front page of the Herald before the dessert is served. The grand gardens of the hotel were quiet, lit only by the low red glow of the pathway lamps. I stood near the stone fountain, my hands in my pockets, watching the gray mist rise from the water. Haley, a voice called out from the darkness of the rose bushes. I turned slowly. Tyler was standing there, his leather varsity jacket wet from the drizzle, his face pale and frantic. Haley, thank God I found you, he stammered, running toward me. I was wrong. Chloe, she's a crazy bitch. She wanted me to frame you for academic cheating, but I refused. I've always loved you, Haley. Let's get back together. I can help you get the scholarship back. Get out of my face, Tyler, I said, my voice carrying the flat, deep baritone of Asher. Asher, shut up. Tyler snapped, his confidence returning as he saw my calm, neutral expression. You think you're so tough because you have money? Without your family's name, you're nothing but a psycho. I'm going to take Haley back tonight, and there's nothing you can do about it. He tried to lunge past me toward the path where I was supposed to be waiting, but before he could take a step, Asher stepped out from the shadows of the hedges. Using my small, fragile body, he didn't try to negotiate. He grabbed Tyler by the arm, his fingers locking around the wrist with a terrifying leverage. He pivoted, transferring his weight to his back leg, and drove his fist straight up into Tyler's chin. Uppercut. The force of the blow was precise, sharp, and brutal. Tyler's head snapped back, his feet leaving the wet gravel as he crashed heavily onto the lawn, his varsity jacket covered in mud and wet leaves. He lay there, clutching his jaw, his eyes wide with a sudden, raw terror as he looked at the small girl who had just knocked him down with one punch. I told you, Asher said, his voice flat as he wiped his hands on a clean white towel. The next time you say my name, I'll make sure you can't speak it again. Chloe ran out from the terrace, her white dress wet from the rain, her eyes wide with horror as she saw Tyler on the ground. Tyler! Oh my God! You psycho! The police are already on their way, Chloe, I said, stepping out from the shadows, my tall, powerful frame completely shielding Asher from her reach. Your father's tax evasion records have just been verified by the federal marshals. You have nothing left. The rain began to fall in heavy, freezing sheets over the hotel courtyard. Asher and I stood by the iron gates, the blue and red lights of the police cruisers flashing wildly against the gray concrete. The school board trustee was being led away in handcuffs, his family's corporate alliance with the school completely shattered. We looked at each other. I was still in his tall, powerful body. He was still in my fragile, pale form. Suddenly, a strange, violent wave of vertigo seized my brain. The world began to spin in a rapid, chaotic circle, the flashing lights of the police cars blurring into a single, blinding golden halo. My chest tightened, a sharp, physical pain radiating from my heart as the blood in my veins ran hot then cold. Crash! A bolt of lightning split the dark sky, followed instantly by a deafening roar of thunder. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, the ground was much closer. I was looking up at the gray sky through wet, long hair. My chest was thin, my fingers small, and the heavy, muscular weight of Asher's body was gone. I was back. I looked up. Asher was standing in front of me, his 6'1" body towering over me, his bad boy crop damp from the rain, his sharp eyes carrying his signature lazy grin. Jerry, he said, his voice deep and gravelly. How does it feel to be a girl? Again? I slowly stood up, my posture perfect, my shoulders back, my chin tilted up with a confidence that had nothing to do with the body swap. I looked him straight in the eyes. It feels like I'm finally ready to fight my own battles, Asher. The spring had come to Silverwood Academy, washing the campus in a bright, warm light. The old queen bee, Chloe, was gone, her family bankrupt and disgraced, her name permanently blacklisted from every prestigious school in the country. Tyler had been kicked off the varsity team, his college scholarships revoked due to his academic fraud records. I stood by the lake, holding my notebook, my head held high as the wind blew through my hair. I was no longer the pushover who hid in the back row. I was The top student of the honors class, respected, confident, and completely free. Haley. I turned to see Asher walking toward me, his hands casually shoved into his pockets, his leather jacket open. He looked tall, dangerous, and completely, beautifully handsome. He walked over, stopping just inches from me, and slid a small, folded piece of paper into my hand. I opened it. The handwriting was still sharp and chaotic, but the message was different. The sky is clear today. Want to skip physics and go for a ride? I looked up at his bright, honest eyes and laughed, a clear, beautiful sound that carried no shadows of the past. Only if you let me drive, Asher, I smiled. And under the bright, clear blue sky, we walked out of the school gates. Together, completely, beautifully free.